everyone, my name's Lizzie. You are on video 3 of my 6-part series focusing on the question, is journalism dying or just transforming? In my first video we talked about the state of journalism, where journalism is at, how journalists use new media and culture such as social media tools in order to promote their materials. In our second video we talked about journalists who have disabilities and the changing landscape of technology, how that might fit in. And we interviewed Melissa, who is a graduate student at Mankato State University studying speech pathology. So she gave us some really good insight to that. In this video, we'll talk about clickbait, which is a new phenomenon used in social media now, especially with newspaper headlines in the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, which makes people want to click on their headlines. I know we've all seen this. I've definitely seen this in Facebook especially. One in particular, it's called Upworthy. I'm sure you've seen it. They give you very heartwarming stories to be told, usually centered around race, class, gender inequities, things like that. But the videos or the photos and the story usually are a lot more shallow than what we would consider, very journalistic long piece titles. And a number of controversies have occurred from this, but just to give you an example of what clickbaiting is and how it operates in the journalism world first, check out these clips.
Hi, I'm Peter, this is Chris, and well, you've just clicked on a vague, highly sensational title that completely oversells and misrepresents the content of this video.
But hey, who gives a shit? Because our advertisers will be happy.
Whether it's YouTube videos with cleavage as thumbnails, or reasons you're secretly grumpy cat, or things only 90s kids will get, it's never really great. Upworthy and BuzzFeed are masters of clickbait today.
See kids, the modern world of journalism is dominated by aggregators like these. You know, the ones that killed traditional papers. Today, men like former Gawker editor Nietzsche Zimmerman have redefined news.
If a person is not sharing a news story, it is, at its core, not news.
What advice would you give college students who are studying to be journalists?
I'd say don't bother unless you're learning how to craft the perfect story for the viral web. You're probably not getting much out of that education.
Really?
Yes. Nowadays, it's not important if a story is real. The only thing that really matters is whether people click on it.
How long does it take you to write a good headline?
Maybe 15 minutes. Then you have to write the rest of the article.
How long does that take?
Maybe 5 minutes.
Read me some of your headlines.
Acclaimed indie filmmaker donates work to university archives.
Next.
New grocery store to replace Kroger on South Industrial.
Meet the man with no ass crack. Sneaky beagle heats up chicken nuggets while owner is away.
Love it.
Sorority girl gets back at two-timing boyfriend by in his bed.
So with the rise of this aggregated media with the clickbait and these headlines that want you to click and generate more likes and shares and retweets, we're seeing that all in BuzzFeed and Gawker and Clickhole and all those places. But media scholars and journalists, worldwide are really condemning these practices, mainly because, it's not journalism. It's just reprinting another form of journalism that came from a credible news source.
Here's the deal. The story's a good story. It makes a key point, which is the amplification of trolls is a problem in the news business, right? That's what happens is the lowest common denominator of any story gets the most attention. Happens on the immigration story, happens on the cop killer chant story. Nevertheless, the headline.
This story, protesters advocating for dead cops seems like a pretty straightforward.
Look at dead cops chant a myth, Ben. It's not a myth. She confirms it in the first graph. It happened.
Oh, I see. You're talking about the splash headline here.
Yeah, what people click on. So are you? Is that tabloid? Are you guys borrowing?
I think myth is a little strong, but
Noam Chomsky totally rips apart BuzzFeed and Gawker and those sort of clickbait journalism. And he argues that it's a new form of propaganda aimed at manufacturing consent in the interests of elite dominant groups in society. He also argues that the aggregated content and the clickbait is actually native advertising, where an advertorial is disguised as genuine editorial content that tricks the user into clicking on it, which is a lot of what we see today, actually. He argues this native advertising is exaggerating and intensifying a problem that is serious and shouldn't have existed in the first place. The reliance of a journal on advertisers shapes and controls and substantially determines what is presented to the public. The very idea of advertiser reliance radically distorts the concept of free media. So we see this type of media everywhere we go. So how do we know what's real and what's not? It kind of takes a professional reader to know the difference between some sort of aggregated news source and what's actually real, although some things are distinguishable, like, crime stories. Although there are news sources like The Onion who use satire as a way to make fun of news sources, but those are easily distinguishable, in my opinion. There is a news source, though, and it's called Upworthy. It's recently gotten popular in the past couple years, like 5 years ago, and they have exactly these clickbait titles. You can even go to a website now that makes you fake Upworthy titles. That's how much of a joke it has become. But they still perpetuate this. And I wonder, as much as they're promoting this good material, this good information, we're losing this long-form way of journalism. We're losing the ability to write long-form stories and content, which shapes our understanding of the world and society. If we're just clicking on things and sharing them and reposting them, what kind of critical thinking skills are we using? And I think that can be a general argument overall for social media, whereas we're just reposting things and posting them. We're not actually making original content. In this next video, you'll see a journalist and a blogger talk about how media conglomerates and companies are actually gimmicking you into these headlines, and how they're pretty much controlling the things that you want to see on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Check it out.
It's bad enough that our time, attention, and capital has been subverted to pursue the monopolization of people's time and attention to turn it into money. The clickbait barons have mastered the ability to take your time, to take your attention, and monetize your identity, and so many of our best and brightest are spending their time doing that. And that is bad in of itself, but the real tragedy is the brain drain away from the problems of our age that they should be paying attention to, specifically climate chaos and disease. The true tragedy is not just the clickbait barons that are sucking our attention and doing all the things that they're doing. It's the fact that the byproduct of that economy is depriving our nation, our people, and our future of the necessary solutions that we are all so desperately in need of when it comes to our climate and disease.
There are some scholars that actually disagree with my belief, and like a scholar, her name is Jill Walker-Retberg. She's a professor of digital culture at the University of Bergen. She argues that academics should communicate their research to the general comment through memes, quizzes, and clickbait, and that professionals and professors should actually make content for BuzzFeed. I really enjoyed this 2-part BuzzFeed post on post-structuralism explained with hipster beards. She gives an example of a post-publication peer review for that particular piece. It goes, quote, "The post-structuralist via hipster beards list was a powerful piece that was both funny and engaging and helped me better understand post-structuralism. Those professors, not including Jill Retberg, went along and decided to make Buzzademia, which is, quote, a peer-reviewed journal for BuzzFeed-style scholarship. There's also a Facebook group, and of course a listicle that says 10 reasons professors should start writing BuzzFeed articles." In my next video, I'll talk about the rise of bloggers and how, in addition to the technology side of things and social media and content and all of that, there has been a significant rise in personal blogs and the way that personal blogs shape and influence our worldview and the way that we see stories. And does it make bloggers that much more credible than professional journalists, let's say at the New York Times, the Washington Post, even the Star Tribune? Can we all be bloggers in this day and age? Or should we just leave it to the professionals? I think there is a great debate happening with this right now, and especially with the rise of WordPress and Blogger by Google, we see an increase and an influx of students and professionals alike who want to start their own blog and start their own story in their own life. So is that a great tool, or should that be saved for reporters? We'll talk about that next in my 4th video of my 6-part series on the question, is journalism dying or just transforming? Thanks for joining.